All right, traders, welcome to today's end of day recap. This is Christian from Hart's Traffic Trade Group, and it is Tuesday, September 19th, and this is just a member only video tonight. So I will go through the price action as normal, and I'll talk a little bit about current positions on and so on and so forth. But I could actually change this here a little bit. I have not updated this since the midday. So we did see a bounce back. I didn't think that we would get one, so we got one. That's when I go out on a limb sometimes and say, geez, I'm really tired of the price action and so forth, which I am. Sometimes things when you don't want to buy the dip, sometimes that's when things kind of come back today. One of the things that, by the way, risk disclaimer in front of you, everything that we're going through is for information purpose only. But one of the things I did say is, perhaps there was a little bit of short covering in the afternoon. Remember, people who are short, people who are long, they both don't want exposure to an event. And we do have an event tomorrow. We have the Fed meeting. Before I go through the price action, let me cover that first. And because we do have the Fed meeting, which is tomorrow, that's the main event for the week, right? People always will basically try to put some basic event that everybody needs to watch. I don't really think, like, I would almost rather just skip the meeting for tomorrow, like, and not listen to it. Of course I'll be listening to it, but I don't know what is Powell going to say tomorrow, because they're not raising interest rates tomorrow. They don't want to shock the market, and there's it's according to Fed Fund futures, there's basically very little chance that they're going to do anything tomorrow. And also for November, this has actually been slipping. So there's a 30% chance that they may raise interest rates again in November. But I leave that there's a lot of new information. This isn't, by the way, like, this is not set in stone. This changes. Like, if Powell says something notable tomorrow, that will change. And same thing when we see different data points that come out, right? So these Fed Fund futures, they move with whatever is said. They move with new information all the time. But right now, because, by the way, like, we've seen multiple times where, if you look out to next year, we've seen multiple times where the market has been anticipating, and I think even the end of this year too, where the market has been anticipating cuts in interest rates, and that hasn't materialized. Inflation's been stubborn. So you just kind of have to take that with a grain of salt, that it will adjust as we go along. But so that's November, and so again, 2 o'clock. So here's a little bit of a message, like, strategy wise, for tomorrow. Number one is the announcement comes at 2 o'clock, and just in case you've never if you're not used to the Fed days, everybody I think in the room probably is familiar with how this works, but I'll repeat it anyway. But 2 o'clock is when we get the official announcement, and then we'll get some headlines about all the different context, and then the press conference starts at 2:30. What can happen a lot of times, again, nothing's 100% of the times, but many times you will see younger traders get fooled, because they're like, oh my God, here goes the S&P. It's starting to either sell off or it's starting to rally. And by the time Powell starts to speak at his press conference, and he usually says something that the market keys in on, and the market then just takes a direction and goes from there. So it can go, if if it starts in one direction, and that can continue. But we often see that whippy price movement, that we can certainly end a different direction than when we started. But overall, I'm not bullish on tomorrow. I don't know what he could possibly say that's bullish, because we just had all that inflation data last week, which is showed an uptick in inflation. And then if you've been watching what the commodities are doing, they're rallying. If you've been listening to what's been going on with these labor strikes, that's inflationary as well. Somebody else just said, I think it was Amazon today, came out and said, I must have missed this headline, but they're looking to pay workers more. Hire more workers, targets rally remain as low as last year. I could have sworn, yeah, they're average. So, I mean, wages are going up. They're not going down. So that leaves me with kind of, that's not good for inflation. So, why would they, why would they decrease interest rates or act like they're going to stop, like they're done with raising interest rates? This is worrisome. So I don't know if some of these worries will begin to subside, because the other thing that I'll mention to you guys again is this is quite normal price action for the month of September, especially this week itself. So I think it's something like the fellow over at Stock Traders Almanac. He mentioned that usually from the middle, I'm misquoting him. Let's see if I can find this really quick. All right, I found it. It's Jeffrey Hirsch, and I was paraphrasing, but I think I was pretty close. Over the last, so what he says, and again, like this is good to have in the back of your mind. Again, it can kind of help you with risk taking. Over the last 20 years, the market has tended to peak on or around the 11th trading day of October. That's around September 18th, which was yesterday. The average decline from mid-month through the end of the month has been around 2%. So, we rebounded. I actually would have preferred us to stay down today, because I just know that if ever, sometimes these things can be a self-fulfilling prophecy, that because nobody wants to buy when they hear things like this. So, and I agree with what he's saying here. We maintain our restrained outlook for the remainder of September and into October. Inflation's cooling trend is being challenged by the rising energy prices, and geopolitical concerns are numerous. Kind of what I just said, but I agree with the guy. So I think just thinking about where we are now and noticing what kind of price action we're getting, right? Things are just difficult. I thought that we would start to see, before I go into the technicals in the S&P and all of that fun stuff, is that I thought we would really see energy names outperform a little bit. Like I like to see, I mentioned the CVX this morning. These things just don't want to go higher for now. Even energy, which is super cheap, right? But this CVX looks like a really good setup to me. Bunched up like this, almost, I don't like the candle for today. By the way, I'm sorry about this settings block in here. I don't know what this is from, and I haven't had a chance to reboot today. So you just kind of have to live with this boxed and up during the video in every single chart. But yeah, I mean, you're just not getting this move. And if you look at what crude did today, it did finish not down on the session, but a toppy, finally a toppy looking candle. So maybe we'll see crude come in a little bit, even though it's still holding above the 5-period moving average. But look at the volume today in crude. So clearly there was most likely some selling. And one of the things that I said in the pre-market commentary was that the RSI is super overbought. I think it was this morning. It was an 81 RSI, right? So again, that's using the RSI study, which I use a lot to see if something is, especially like an indice, is overbought. What's going on here? Why can't I open this up more? There we go. Yeah, I mean, that's very overbought in 81. 70, 75, okay, you want to see things kind of like sometimes get into overbought territory and stay, but an 81 is pretty hot. So let's see what it does. It's probably due for some consolidation. If I had to guess too, right, I would think that maybe we see a check back to this virgin point of control takeout. Remember, sometimes with those virgin point of controls, you could see price get further and then we kind of come back in, like this, for example, right? This was a bigger of a move, and then we kind of settled in and gave it back. So don't, sometimes you have to remember that even if you make it past a virgin point of control, sometimes the price will come back and consolidate around there. So that's kind of what I'm thinking. But this is the chart that I posted earlier. Now I've lost that. Now I've lost that chart. One second. Yeah, so this is kind of this has been interesting because energy stocks and crude they're not going to have the same exact performance, right? Crude's not going to go up 2% and XLE is going to go up 2% too. Sometimes it'll go up 2.5%, referring to XLE. Sometimes it'll only go up 1%. But they generally do kind of there is a correlation, obviously, between the two. But this is really odd. I don't know if I've seen this before, where crude goes up this much and energy stocks are just not following. And I don't have the answer to that. Someone said on Twitter to me, they're like, "Hey, should I short crude?" And it's because thinking that this relationship is going to collapse. I don't know. I don't have a reason for it, but I've been positioned in energy stocks thinking that we're going to like energy should be like closer to some of these other situations, even if it drags a little bit. But that's a major underperformance between what energy stocks and what crude is doing. So you can't, and we've talked about this over the last week because we started to kind of notice that last week that there was a couple days where energy stocks really kind of sold off. They started to go higher for the day and they sold off. So this OIH, for example, was down over 2% today. I mean, on a day where the S&P was only down 0.25% today, energy stocks really underperformed. So again, it's one of those things too where maybe people have crowded into energy stocks. You certainly have heard that from I don't listen to CNBC all day long, but the fast money folks have been talking about like when they're all bulled up about one particular area of the market, you could kind of use them as a little bit of I hate to say it, but you could kind of use them as a little bit of a contrarian indicator. So perhaps that's what it is. Perhaps that there's already a lot of people that are already in energy stocks, and that's the reason why they're not going further. Just a guess. Regarding that underperformance. But regardless of what it is, you have to be careful with that group too. So what did outperform for the day? Solar stocks, and I think that's based on that ENPH insider buy this morning. They did close off the highs. Biotech did okay today. Home builders rallied. Tech did okay today. That rallied after the open. So some areas like really did, came back pretty strong for the day. Let me go through the S&P just to kind of give you a heads up in terms of what I was looking for. So what I thought was interesting was that there's two levels that I talked about in the S&P today. The first one held. That's 4467.75, right? That's the bottom of value. I don't know if we're going to see a reversal off of that. We're still below all these short-term moving averages. So I think you have to be a bit more conservative. And I don't know if we're leaving this for just another time. I would have really liked to see this virgin point of control being taken out today. Then I would feel a little bit better about the rally. One other thing that I would mention too is the breadth today. It never, like, even though we were rebounding pretty decently, the breadth never went positive, right? And you could see that on the bottom of your screen. There was a question recently about what the market breadth indicator does. It looks at up volume versus down volume. And the more extreme it is, the more selling pressure you have. So I've seen it. I've seen crazy numbers from time to time with that breadth indicator, like a -20, a -30. Usually we're around kind of where we were today, like a -2. That's pretty moderate, but it just shows again that there's more things going down versus up. And yeah, I mean, you could see for the better part of the day, breadth never really flipped. Also note, I was trying to point this out in the room that, watch these bottom of values. It's again, like this was a hell of a rebound from the lows of the day, but like the bottom of value is a great place to say, like, if you were carrying some risk, like, and you were looking for a spot to trim for the day, it would be bottom of value. And you could see what the Qs did. Right, the Qs got there again, kind of similar to yesterday's value. This week's value area on the 1 hour chart. Right, we got a little bit inside there yesterday. If I can straighten this out right here, right, a little bit inside value, and then all of a sudden, a dribble outside. So same thing when you look at the Qs on the 5-minute. Right, we got there and just couldn't get through it. And again, it's a great place to like for the short term, because it's just Ah, man, I'm having such a difficult time today with charts, including that box that's in the screen and won't go away. Um, so yeah, and we're sitting here on the 1 hour chart, and we're kind of caught in the middle. This is further to go, and the one thing that again, sorry to be so negative, but you know, I get negative when I don't like the technicals and I don't like the breadth. But we're sitting here below the 50-day moving average. And so a little bit of a hammer bar tomorrow, but I just don't know if that's going to lead to some type of reversal. I'll get more excited if we get back above the short, all these moving averages, and the price gets back above the value area for the month. Right now, we're just kind of sitting right in the middle of it, all right, waiting for something that's going to happen possibly tomorrow or later in the week. Also, I'm trying to cover as many subjects as possible, but yes, I mean, this is another reason why we're seeing so many areas just stall. Right where they're supposed to like take that next turn higher. And this is this continues to be a problem, right? Bonds going down, excuse me, yeah, bond prices going down and interest rates going higher. So, that's the other issue, right? I talked about whether Powell is going to do anything for tomorrow on the short end of the curve, but it doesn't look like he's going to, but interest rates keep marching higher here. The 2, the 3, the 5, the 7, the 10, 20, all of these were up today, and that's a decent amount. That's a decent amount of bips. The 10-year was up to six. The 10-year was up 6.4 today. So if you want to look at what the yield looks like, here's the yield chart, and you could see that's through those highs. So again, this is these are headwinds, and this is why things keep stalling. So the moral here is you just have to kind of be patient and let this work through. But and also just be mindful that of that seasonality where the S&P could go down on average. From what Stock Traders Almanac was saying, is that usually they go down around 2% from the middle of the month to the end of the month. So how's that for an uplifting end of day video, member video? Here's what I did today. SIBO, the CEO left. Hey, this is kind of what should happen sometimes when you have a really nice looking chart. A name that's not a real volatile name, a name that should do well kind of in this environment. So I just kind of took the money and ran with this one for profits. That I'll do anytime. Diamond Offshore, we already talked about the energy stocks, but this one, again, there's nothing wrong with holding this into support. And possibly thinking about adding to it, but it didn't hold, right? It broke today and was down 3%. So bye-bye. Workday, I can revisit this name. It actually came back from where I sold it, but I'm still like, I'm going to try trades here and there, but I'm going to get out of them if I don't think that they're going to work. Notice that it had a really nice green day yesterday, so I was able to take a target yesterday. Really need to see this price get back above not only the 20, which it did, but also the 5-period moving average. Right, Workday may be a good stock to kind of position in right now. So you may find me go back into that name. PCAR, again, didn't stick in this one too long, but real nice looking candle yesterday, moving outside of the value area and just no follow through. Started to go higher. I actually thought about taking like a 50-cent target in the name. I thought, no, it should be okay. Nope, it pulled back. Again, this is another one. Put the alert back at 85.92. It just right now may not be the environment for it, but this is still a good looking setup, provided that it can take that next leg higher. And what else? I think that's it. Pakar, and I already covered Workday. Everything else, I was on Benzinga at the end of the day. Someone asked about Celsius. Celsius is just kind of consolidating here. I don't see anything to do with my last portion of the position yet, so I'm just holding it for now. We'll see if it gets down to the 20-day moving average. Akamai. Oh, I actually hit a target in this one. I forgot to put that in here. So here's Akamai. So of course, even though it's up $1 from my entry price, of course I'm going to take of course, I just mentioned I didn't take a target in Pakar, and that reversed on me. I mean, you have to take targets in these things. So what's my target? I mean, you just can't bypass taking your first target in a trade right now. Do I think this chart looks good? I do. I like it, and that's why I stayed in it. It has also held up pretty well, so that's a good sign. But we've seen this. I mean, you still have to be on your toes, and you can't relax. Look at how similar, it's not perfect, but look at how similar this AppLovin. I don't think there was any news on the stock today. Stock was down 10% at one point today. So things that don't normally break down like that are reversing. So while I think this Akamai looks great, you just have to be on guard and have a downside alert so that you're protecting yourself in case if a name goes down. Amazing. That AppLovin was down over 10% today on no news. So I mean, these tech and high growth names are super volatile. BKR, I did leave this one on. I think that's my only energy name left. It is holding in here. Weatherford, I was watching this one today too. I thought, geez, I really should have kept that trade on yesterday. Nope, it reversed and had a bearish engulfing. So I was okay without that one. Google, I added to it this morning. I like adding Google on a little bit of dips. Again, it's just not as, knock on wood, it's not as volatile as some of the other names right now. And it's still just kind of gliding higher like that. It's not doing much, but at least it's going in the right direction. India, and I don't think this has done much of anything this week. It's kind of consolidating. KKR had a not such a great looking candle today. Was down. I think that says 1.6% for the day. So again, I'm going to try to stick with this one and stick with the breakout, even though it did not have a good day today. And then the one that looks the worst out of the group is last and least is Tech Resources. Remember, we saw a whole bunch of call buying on Friday. For now, it's holding the top of value. It had underperformance today because I was thinking about adding to it today, and I just looked and I'm like, geez, this thing's like lifeless today. With the rest of the market coming back, this didn't. So that may have to go tomorrow too if it doesn't show some type of strength or some type of buyer coming back into it. But again, like disappointing because Tech Resources, they do a few different things, but you look at US Steel of 3.7% today, right? And again, Tech is the one that saw call buying. Cliffs has seen call buying too, but there was a lot of calls that went up in Tech Resources. Again, it doesn't with the option activity. Some of them are going to be right, some of them are going to be wrong. So that's it, guys. That's a quick recap and thoughts, but not a lot of positives. It's one of those things. Just have to get through this month, and then hope things get better. Again, it's not going to be something. Once we get through September, where I'm automatically going to start buying, I'm going to look for things to improve, such as breadth, which I quote multiple times during the day. I don't like to do much when the breadth is really ugly looking, which it's been more often than not over the last month. All right, guys, thanks for watching, and I'll see you tomorrow.